Hello and welcome to another YouTube chat. I wish I could be very classy and do a really good chit chat, but my name is Jenfer Taylor. I'm one half of the Psychic Phoenix. The other half is my daughter, who is in Yorkshire, and she's a mama to little Elsie, so she's very busy at the moment. But tonight I am super excited. The way it's all come about, how the time frame came that I could speak to my next guest, because I was listening to a video from Tina and Fiona, and when I heard him speak, I thought, oh gosh, I need to speak to him. And he's an incredible busy man, but for some reason it just came about. So rather than me talk anymore, I'm gonna oh my God, when you sat in front of somebody and you just think, oh, I can't believe it, so I'm just going to hand it over to you and introduce yourself, please. And I'm going to go quiet.
I will. I'm Björn Ekdahl. I'm the founder of Hamingja Foundation. Hamingja Foundation is an organization and nowadays also a membership platform that helps people like you and me to those who want to find their true roots and practice their native Indo-European spirituality. And we do that with courses, content, and community, the three C's of Hamingja Foundation. And it all started with that I used to write eternally long comments on other people's YouTube channels and YouTube videos within this field. And someone there actually told me, like, you should start a podcast, which I did. That was 3 years ago. It's called the Hamingja Podcast. And from there, there were so many after each episode, there were so many people contacting me, and they said they wanted to know more and they wanted to connect, etc. So I started up a community, a Discord server around that podcast, and from there we've just built and built, and now we're a big organization. We produce programs, courses, content, documentaries, guides, etc., for our members, so they can actually practice authentic Indo-European spirituality. We also organize events, etc. So those of your listeners and viewers who are interested in this should visit hamingja.foundation. That's the short version of me.
Wonderful, thank you. Which I will put the details in the description below. So me personally, my little background from it all, how I've come across you, is my search from having fallen for the new age cul-de-sac, and then realizing, hang on a minute, my life is not being so meaningful, yet the moment I step away from it and I start to listen to other people and then go back to what I knew as a child, my life is starting to get some meaning. But one of the things that a lot of people have spoken to me about, and I agree, is like, what are the old ways? And in my opinion, the old ways is the old spirituality. So I use the term paganism. What is paganism?
That is a very broad term and a very big question. Paganism is basically all religious cultures that are, well, they don't even have to be polytheistic, but very often they say that every religious culture that is polytheistic and or animistic. And very often that term also relates to pre-Christian or pre-Abrahamic faiths, and so pagan. The term pagan was first actually used by Christians. So no, okay, so let's call us pagans. Then no pagan would call themselves pagan before the 20th century. Actually, it was a Christian term in the 4th century. So the word pagan is also often used in contrast to the Abrahamic faiths. Also, often at that time, it was often used in as a contrast to those living in cities. So, pagan in Latin means rural or villager, or you've also heard the word heathen or and
Mm.
heathenry, meaning someone who lives out on the heath. So that's to say, outside the quote unquote civilized Abrahamics. So from the beginning or originally, pagan wasn't really a very positive or not even a very accurate term, but we have chosen to use it. A lot of people have chosen to use it since uh, people know that label, and it's a quite established label. I mean, there was never any religion or spiritual path that, or even an ism that called itself paganism. It's rather something that contrasts something else. Um, but you can basically summarize it that saying that it's everything. A paganism and a pagan can basically be anything outside the Abrahamic monotheistic faiths. So, us in the Hamingja Foundation, we focus on the so-called Indo-European spirituality, the collective pre and non-Christian cultures in and around the classical world, such as Greco-Roman, Germanic, Celtic, Slavic, Vedic tribes, etc. They I've mentioned that before, that they all emerge from the Pontic Caspian steppe in today's Russia and Ukraine. And they constitute our ancestors. So we focus on that part of quote unquote paganism. So paganism, it can be, it's not easy to answer your question because it can actually be anything that is not monotheistic Abrahamic faith. But we focus on the European or Indo-European uh, part of that.
That's led me to another question. What is the who there was a book, and I wish I brought it downstairs now, but what who was the, I can't, my pronunciation isn't brilliant.
Abrahamic?
Yeah, who were they?
Oh, so the Abrahamic peoples are basically Christians, Jews, and Islam. All the prophetic religions who claim their ancestry from Abraham, basically the Abraham of the Bible.
And they believed in one God, didn't they?
Well, yeah, after a while they did, yeah.
After a while.
Yeah.
So they gradually over time and swept through the whole of the world and trying to get everyone
I
to
mean,
convert.
if you look at the for example the Hellenic world or the ancient world around the Mediterranean, they were all again quote unquote pagans. They were all, I mean, no one knew these religions before they had prophets talking about them. So all the Christians and Jews, etc., they had before that they had all been pagans, believing in spirits and gods and beings and consciousnesses. So it grew, and they've also, maybe I shouldn't say stolen, but they've borrowed a lot from Indo-European spirituality itself. So many, for example, if you look at baptism or yeah, dipping in water, etc., when you with at the name giving ceremony, etc., it's all those kind of ceremonies and traditions were pagan initially. So yeah, it all comes from somewhere, and it developed. The Abrahamic faiths developed in the what do you say, in the Near East or the Middle East, in yeah, around, and they also took a lot of inspiration from, I don't know if you've heard of Zoroastrianism and Zarathustra and the prophets in the former religion of Iran, the Persian Empire. they were also polytheistic, but had a prophet who split the world or existence up into like a, what do you say, a dualism, so good and evil. So that's also where the Judaism, Christianity, and Islam took a lot of their inspiration from that. I hope I answer your questions.
Yes, you did. You answered my question, and then like I sent you this list of questions, and then I go off on a tangent and ask some other questions, but I could only write down two because I was listening to you at the same time. So I mean, if I can just use the word pagan, then that in my mind, I can just keep on track, because what I've got from you so far is like there's no one straightforward answer. It was like, this is the way people lived, and they never classed themselves as this label. It's just the way they lived and
Yeah, I mean, not until, this is a very interesting question, because not until the Roman Empire, no one talked about religion. No one
no,
knew what religion was. No one knew the
really,
word religion. Religion was something that the Romans invented, actually very late in the Roman Empire. So if you asked someone 2000 years ago what religion they have, they wouldn't have understood what you meant. They would have told you that, they would have answered you that, well, what do you mean? I just live. I just live according to our traditions and customs. So I
that's a
don't know
bit
if
like the Aborigines, isn't it? Like when you say to an
exactly,
Aborigine, where do you live? And they go, well,
exactly.
I live
Yeah.
on this planet, I live
I
on
mean,
this
the same
earth.
thing that people, I mean, prehistoric people, if you ask them what nationality do you have, they wouldn't understand. They all just call themselves the people.
Yes.
Everyone called themselves, we are the people. So they were the people, and they didn't have a religion. They had the customs and the traditions of their forefathers. So they would never understand you if you asked them what religion do you have. It wasn't really something you have, like a noun. It's rather a verb. Maybe that's the best way I can explain it. That rather than a noun, it's a verb.
That explains so much. Thank you. Thank you. And because that's now got me like, I'm sorry, we're going off a track again. Like, I'm terrible with my questions. So sorry.
No problem.
But and I think from me, it's like what that you spoke about the people's traditions, the customs that they learned from the forefathers. But if I just push that to one, no, place that to one side for a moment, it was what they believed in, how the consciousness, and I think that's what is broken, isn't it? Is our connection to the earth. We're more connected to the earth than what we like, the way we behave, the way, I don't like to say we, I'd like to say they, but it's our
We'll get
everything
into
out of
that a bit
consciousness.
later when we talk about, for example, superstition. What we've done and what these Abrahamic faiths did. If you look at Christianity, for example, they often say that the flesh, you don't need to care about the flesh. The flesh and then the material world, etc., isn't important. The only thing that matters is heaven and paradise. So whatever you do, you can always be forgiven, and you just move on to heaven. That's what the Christians say, basically. I'm simplifying a lot here, but so what happened with, for example, Christianity is that the material aspect, the physical aspect of existence, got less and less important. And at the same time, what happened then is that the ironic thing here is that the more they wanted to focus away from the material, the more it actually became important. So instead, we forgot about the spiritual aspect of everything, that there is no such thing as a distinction between material and spiritual, because one can't be without the other. They are all well, I can tell you that, okay, look at this rock, look at this stone here. And a scientist would say, oh, well, it's just a rock. But then you've counted out the fact that that everything is alive, everything has consciousness, and that is what happened over time. So we lost the spiritual aspect of things, and with that we've also lost contact with ourselves and with Mother Earth, etc. And you see what that led to, how we treat each other and the world, etc. Because the only thing, the material aspect isn't as important as getting to heaven. So we can treat Earth however we want, because that doesn't matter, according to newer faiths.
It makes me so like, it makes me feel so sad that we've lost that connection, that we've lost the importance of like the whole reason why we're here. It's important, isn't it? It's like, again, when I go back to the Aborigines, like, and even that's not a proper term, the original people, they knew the value of the land, didn't they? They knew that we were caretakers. We're here, we take care of this lands. And, we've been swept away into this materialistic, everything can be replaced. And then I can't speak on behalf of other people, but it's almost like we're just wandering lost because there's no meaning. And then listening to you talk.
That's also one of the reasons why the mental unhealth, it increases, because there's no purpose, there's no meaning, there is no essence to life itself. All there is materialism. So all the isms, materialism, capitalism, communism, they wouldn't have been possible without the Abrahamic faiths, without Christianity, because they sprang out of Christianity. So there you have it. Capitalism, communism, they all come from the same cradle. So you can basically treat each other and the world however you want,
Yeah.
because we've lost that understanding of Mother Earth meeting Father Sky, so to say.
Exactly. And that's one of the biggest things with the New Age movement, which I just could not understand. It was like manifest this big house, manifest this big car, manifest this, manifest that. Why can't we just be happy that we've got a roof overhead? Why can't we just be happy that we've got water coming through the taps? Why can't we? And even that's taking it for granted, isn't it? Because it's like, where does the water come from? And that's where I really struggled over the last few years. It was like, had no meaning. I don't want the big house. I don't want the big car. All I want is like the connection to the land, connection to the animals, like feel the sun on me and and be here, be present. And if it's almost like there's so much that I need to understand. If
You're not alone. I mean, look at the Western world in general. So many people, no matter if they mention it or not, they are looking for something. They're looking for purpose and essence, and they are tired of this wheel of working and finances and stress. And I'm not saying that we're not going to work. Of course, people have always worked very, very hard, but people are looking for something else. It's just that we've forgotten about what does have real value. For example, I worked, I worked in the Paris fashion industry for many, many years, and there is no more shallow and materialistic world than that. And I always knew that there's no substance here. It was a lot of fun and very interesting, and I work with sustainability within the fashion industry, so very interesting, putting that agenda up on the table. But there's got to be something else. It's just that people are right now, they're looking for it in the Western world, but they don't know where and how to find that. And that's why, if you say around 1900s, people started, actually they had to look to the east, and they had to look to New Age, because there was nothing here. There was nothing original, native, around here, which we've always had. Of course, it was always right here, as I say in my own podcast. You don't need to look to the east. It was always right here. uh, but we almost erased it from European soil, and that's why people, in the 60s, I wasn't born then, but people were looking to Hare Krishna or to India, etc. Um, and people have been looking for, well, to New Age, etc., because they always felt they need something more, but they don't know where to go. And that's
Is
one
that
of the things. That's one of the things that Hamingja Foundation helps with.
that's the thing, isn't it? Because like, you know, we have, like I always remember as a child, like going into these churches in England and being it like, oh, beautiful. And then I would listen to the vicar talk, and then I thought, you're not making sense to me. You've lost me. I've switched off. But then I also couldn't connect to the Eastern ways. And then when I learnt like about England and the Druids and our Celtic, and then recently, like really not recently, it like I always remember my friend Vince, he was saying to me, no, you've got to look to the Nordic ways. That's our ancestors, that's where we come from. And so it brings me to the question is like,
Sorry, let me just say there, because that's an important point, that I want all of your viewers and listeners to know that they too have roots. They too come from somewhere. And it's this, when we look to the East, for example, a lot of people look to Hinduism. The original platform of Hinduism is Indo-European spirituality. It's the same people, it's just another cultural expression, because these people who migrated to the south instead of into Europe. So it's important for everyone out there to know that they come from somewhere, they have a native spirituality, they have a culture, etc. You just need to re-find it. And a lot of our members come because they've, just like you, they've all of a sudden they realize, well, what's this? Druidism, Celts, Norse, Germanics, Anglo-Saxons, what's all this? And they too have felt that Christianity didn't, just like myself. I was born in and grew up in a very secular both family and society, but well, Christianity was closest at hand, but it never gave me the answers I needed. And so the majority, the lion's share of our members have the exact same experience, that they were looking for something, but Christianity didn't give them the answers they needed.
no. Yeah, and I think that's the thing, isn't it? We're all trying to find a way back home, aren't we? But I don't know whether it's like previous generations, but more prominent now, like from what I see and hear, is like we're all just wanting to find our roots, our spiritual background, because for what, is, well, who knows? Well, we know why.
A
But
rootless tree falls, as we say in the
yes,
Nordic countries. So, and that's why, I mean, the trees are about to fall, so people are looking for their roots.
yeah. And meaning to life, isn't it? What is right, okay, so this is going back off tangent because I think a lot of the how we can learn about our traditions is to join your foundation. Is it a lot of money to join your foundation? That's my other biggest
Sorry,
thing.
what was your question?
Oh, I was going to ask you the question about gods, but then I was going to ask you about the traditions and customs of our forefathers. So it was kind of like one going off in one direction and one off in a different direction, because we could join your foundation and then we could learn about the traditions and the customs, couldn't we?
Yes.
Is your foundation like, money wise, is it a lot to join, or is it different memberships?
Extremely expensive. No, and we're all dragons sitting on our pile of gold. No, it's up until now, it's been a podcast, and it's been a Discord community with some events, etc. And it's until now, it's been free for
Oh,
3 years. However, now we're developing this membership platform that will be a bit more more community, more events, more documentaries, uh, like I said, guides and courses, so much more flesh on the bones, so to say. And so that it's going to cost $25 a month for this membership platform. You don't have to be a member. You can still be part of the Discord server, but you won't. But if you will be a member, that will cost $25, and you will get access to all the courses, the programs. There will even be we're working on like priestly programs, so you can actually study for 3 years, a priestly education within the. When I say priest, I mean not Christian priests, but pre-Christian priestly education, etc.
Yes, because my friend Kavita, I hope I pronounced her name right. I mean, her grandfather was a priest, but like you said, not like a priest. He was known. I think they were from India. So the Hinduism is their belief, but the grandfather was a priest, and I remember her saying like some people came and they wanted to convert him, and it was all about money, and he said, no, I can't go down that path. This is my roots, this is my blood. You can't, it's not about the money. And so when I hear you say that, it's like the traditional sense of what a priest
Yeah,
is.
in India, for example, the gurus, if we take in the traditional India, the Vedic gurus, they didn't they had a lot of pupils, but they didn't charge anything at all. Rather that the pupils chose what they wanted to give to the guru. I'm no guru, not whatsoever, but we are de facto offering a lot on this platform. The only way for us to offer that to people is to charge a
Mm.
slight sum from now on, if you want to be part of that membership. If you don't, then just join the community.
Yeah,
So
because it's an exchange for your time, but it's also an exchange for all the like Zoom and all that technology that gets
yeah,
that information out there. That's
yeah,
that's what it's going for.
yeah.
Right. So back to my questions. So um so animism in the beginning, from what I believe or understand, is like how everything had a consciousness, how you could go amongst the trees, the rocks, the river, and commune to the spirits of the river, the rocks, and trees. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Wonderful. Then from there came, well, not came, but where did this honoring of the gods come from?
Good question. First of all, animism, of course, stems from Latin anima, which means that it's ensouled, or it has spirit, so to say. So, uh, I would say that. Oh, well, the researchers and the scientists say that animism and what they call the hieros gamos, the holy marriage between, like I said earlier, the marriage between Mother Earth and Father Sky, that is the original religion of more or less every people from all over the world, believing in this marriage between the material and the spiritual, and also an animistic. Because if you look all over the world, you'll see that most people have been animistic at one point, up until one point. So I would claim that animism is like yeah, it is the original quote unquote religion, the worldview, rather, the original worldview, believing that everything is ensouled and animated. Um, and originally, now we are way back in time, maybe 10, 20,000 years back in time. People didn't really have gods, but they yeah, again, they saw everything as having consciousness and spirit. Everything was a spirit, more or less. A tree was a spirit. And people wanted to interact with their surroundings. They needed to interact with their surroundings to survive. And they started offering. They started actually magic, the real meaning of magic is that you interact with these spirits without having to go via a god. So if you yourself personally interact with a spirit, that is doing magic in the original sense. So people started, for example, a good example is that I mean, people studied nature. Of course, we did. We've always studied nature, and we saw that if you put a seed in the ground, it will grow up as a plant. And people started thinking that if we plant our dead in the ground, they will grow up as a plant. So that was why people started burying other people, dead people, because the belief was that they're going to grow back up. And so that's one part of magic. So we needed to survive and to be reborn. We needed to interact with the spiritual part of this world. And as time passed by, these spirits in people's minds became more and more powerful, and they were responsible for bigger and bigger functions and roles. For example, people saw that if you take a stone and you let it go, it will fall down on the ground. So gravity was, of course, a spirit too. I mean, everything was deified. Gravity was deified into it, so it was a spirit, a personal spirit representing gravity. So these spirits became lesser or bigger and responsible for bigger or lesser functions and roles and cosmic functions, so to say. And some of them became huge, big gods, and some of them stayed as land spirits or continued to be. I don't know if I'm answering your question. I'm trying to answer. Yeah. So studies show that the more time that passes, the more organized, to use this term again, religion gets. Religion gets more organized with time, and the more we also become domesticated and civilized, and the more we live in urbanized, then religion tends to be seems to be more organized. So that's also what happened. But to come to the Indo-European peoples, Indo-European spirituality is very, very based on offerings and sacrifice. It's based on reciprocity, hospitality, and gift giving. This gift giving cycle is what keeps the cosmos expanding. So everyone has to give in a reciprocity. So people understood that if we want more cows, we need to offer sacrifice to the cow goddess. If we want clean water, we need to offer to the river goddess. We need to have many sons and prosperity, etc. We need to give and give and give, and they will give back, because according to them, the cosmic laws said that that these gods know these cosmic laws so well, so they will automatically reciprocate your gifts. So that's how people started thinking that if we give, the Romans said, "Do this," I give to be given, and they, actually your nickname for the pound, quid, actually comes from the expression quid pro quo. So from the Latin expression quid pro quo, so this for that. So so a quid is this and quo is that. So this for that. So that is a very, very Indo-European rule, that you have to reciprocate this hospitality or this gift giving cycle. And that's what people started doing.
It's like our ancestors respected, didn't they? You just couldn't take for granted everything, and they showed
you could take nothing for granted.
Yeah, so they showed their respect
for
what was abundant.
Yeah, and it was a gift exchange. It was an exchange.
Yes.
Same, you see that everywhere. You see that when people married, you still have it today. You exchange gifts on
Yeah.
Christmas Eve, or well, Jul, as we say in the Nordic countries. You give gifts. On your birthday was actually originally that you didn't receive gifts on your birthday, but you gave gifts on your own birthday. So
Hmm.
all of these things come from this rule that it was all, and by taking part in this gift giving cycle, you are also part of, in a sense, creating, or the continuation of the creation of the universe. Because if all of that gift giving stops, then the cosmos or the universe will stop expanding.
Very true. Very true. Because we've gone like the pendulum, swung from like respecting and giving to the other far end of just take and taking, isn't it?
Yeah.
Take what you want. It doesn't really matter,
And we all, in the few cases we actually give, we don't do it selflessly. So there is a Vedic term called, or Sanskrit term called seva, which nowadays means more or less charity, but originally it means to be like the divine. Because if you give selflessly, completely selflessly, then you are like the divine, and that's also a way of discovering your own divinity. Because we believe that everything has divinity within itself. And the more we do selfless acts or deeds, the more we um, discover and act like the divine.
Yes, and that again is being twisted a little bit, because it's like this belief, like we said in our conversation before we started recording, it's almost like you be good just because you know you're going to go to heaven, and that's
Yeah.
a false lie as well.
So there's no altruism in that. So the only altruism is that, for example, it's very easy to give to charity, give like $1,000, and then you tell everyone like, oh, I'm so good because I just gave a lot of money to this foundation or something like that. There's no good karma in that. For example, the best karma is to do a lot of things for others and give, and say nothing about it.
Mm.
Just let it be. Just do it.
And it's I another thing is like when you're just walking along the street and you see some rubbish, just pick it up, put it in the bin, recycle it.
Yeah, and people don't do it because it won't give them any recognition, or won't give them
Yeah.
anything. So people don't do it.
No, because we live in this very false, like, social media, like, look at me, I'm doing good, look at me. And that's where a lot of us are feeling very empty, because it's just not true.
Mm.
Right. So I was going to ask you about, did the gods live amongst humans? But you've answered the question, because our ancestors they weren't gods as a people. They just respected like the wind, they respected the sun, and they became their gods, didn't they?
Originally, among Indo-European peoples, the quote unquote gods, in fact, it's interesting because the word God, you hear, I can talk for hours and hours, but the word God stems from an ancient Indo-European root, meaning to pour. You pour a libation, for example. So Geutor was the original Indo-European term, which from where God stems, and so to be godly is to pour libations or to give gifts. So there you have it again, the gift giving cycle. Never mind. Where were we? Yeah. So exactly. So originally the Indo-European peoples, they didn't see the gods as persons or these characters. They rather deified or personified these cosmic functions. And so the gods were originally, maybe you should say, like junctions in the cosmic weave. So wherever there's a very important function or crossroads in the cosmic weave, that's where a god is. So a god is something or someone who's upholding maintaining and making these functions flourish in the universe. So it can be gravity, it can be the wind, it can be water, it can be love, it can be the sea, it can be whatever. And but then there was some old Roman who said that if horses had arms and they would draw their gods as horses, because that's what people do. We anthropomorphize. Is that what you say? You anthropomorphize things. So it was easier to tell these stories and pass that knowledge on by describing these phenomena as characters or figures or people or something like that. So originally they were natural or universal phenomena who were part of this consciousness, and they later on became deified or personified. We didn't have, for example, originally we didn't have sculptures or idols or anything like that. They rather, scientists say that they used to have like color combinations or color codes to represent different gods, etc. So no, they weren't represented as characters originally.
No. Um,
But I think it was out of convenience to. It was easier to tell these stories because people didn't have an alphabet. They didn't have any other way of passing on knowledge than orally. So that's what they did for thousands and thousands of years. And there are incredible examples from the Vedic scriptures compared to the Norse. And now we're talking like that there might be 5,000 years between them, and they are almost down to the word the same. So they were incredibly skilled in passing things on orally, extremely skilled.
wow. I've got just, I want to ask you about, because one of the questions that I asked you is Superstition Handbook for Living. But before I ask you that question, and I also want to ask you, can we still be in contact with ancestors? But before I ask you that, there's just one question that's really like in the forefront of my mind. How do you see this reality that we live in? Do you see it as, how do you see this? Yeah, how do you see this reality? Are we on a planet? Are we in this realm? How do you?
How I personally view.
Yes, your
Okay.
personal view.
Well, it's super important to remember for all of those who want to practice paganism or want to go back to their roots is that our ancestors were no idiots. They didn't believe in any hocus pocus. It wasn't hocus pocus. The old ways were practically science. It was them exploring and looking at nature. How do things work? How do this function? Uh, and they lived based on that. So paganism isn't it isn't, what do you say, distinct or distinguished from science. That's some kind of new age belief that it would be something. So we firmly believe in science, and so why wouldn't we be living on a planet? Everything points at that, right? So we live on a planet. The only thing I would add is that people have lost this understanding of that it's not only matter, there's also a spiritual aspect. So everything, I mean, if you look at the sea, and today it is beautiful, glittering, it's sunny, the sea is calm and warm, and the next day there might be a storm, and the sea is very upset and big waves and terrifying. Don't you see that there's personality? And sometimes I've said too that, what does water mean? Or, for example, what does love mean to someone who's just fallen in love? Or what does it mean to someone who's just broken up with someone? What does water mean for someone, or to someone who is thirsting to death in the desert? And what does it mean to someone who's drowning in it? So again, it's personality. we all and everything has personality, and we are all parts of this consciousness. There's one consciousness, but we are all different parts of that consciousness. So I view the world exactly as it is. It's just that there's spirit to it, and everything is alive and conscious. And it's important not to be a death worshipper, like, let's not mention any other faiths, but they worship death and what happens after death. We worship life and what's right here, right now, and all its beauty and glory.
I like that. Yeah, yeah, you're right, aren't you? You're right. Yes, it's like here, right now, love and the glory, and here. Oh, I'm not going to try and repeat what you just said, but yes, you're right. And I think
Yeah.
that, yeah, you're right. You're right. Right.
So
So,
again, paganism is not, it's not anything else than the world and life and existence itself. And we are super happy with that, and that is what we worship. That was a joke that was there's this cartoon where a Christian says that, do you really believe in that? And the pagan answers, well, look, at least the sky and the sea and the earth exists. So that's an important point, that we look at things and we worship what there actually is and what's here and now, and not something later on.
I understand now why you said to me at the very beginning, we could talk for hours and hours and hours, because that's led me
Yeah.
to the next question, but I don't want to go into that because it's first steps, baby steps, like, and that's the first step. So yeah, I'm going to cross that question out. That can be the question for, it was about our ancestors. Can we
We didn't
still,
need any of your original questions. We can just talk for hours and hours.
exactly, exactly. So I just want to end this conversation because, like, as always, I'm always aware of people's time. Your time is precious, but yeah, is superstition a handbook for living? That was one of my questions. That was question number 8. Is the superstition of our ancestors the handbook for living?
I often say that, let's not, our tradition is not about the worship of ashes, it's the preservation of fire. And we shouldn't, we should, what did I say? Seek not the answers of the ancestors, seek what your ancestors sought. We need to seek the same thing. So well, the short answer to your question is yes, but let's be just like them and focus on finding truth here and now, not by looking, well, we can always learn a lot, but they took their traditions from their forebears, and they lived and they looked and they searched and they, yeah. So that's the first thing I wanted to say. And then superstition, this is also again a very important question, because, or point, what we've forgotten about is that it was always the Romans. They coined all these things. So they made a distinction between religio and superstitio. So religio was the late Roman Empire's description of the right worship, in contrast to superstitio, which was the more personal, domestic beliefs and practices. Um, so they made a distinction between religio, which was the organized and controlled, often stately religion or faith, and superstitio. And I would like to say, and superstitio is the what we've forgotten. Nowadays we have a lot of religion in society all over the world, but we have very little superstitio. And superstitio is to follow what you see and what you feel within yourself and what you know is right, the truth itself. Some call it the gut feeling, the sixth sense. We call it chartus, the eternal natural order and the truth. Um, religio is to understand and know something, but superstitio is to live it, to experience it, to see it with your own eyes, and to experience it. The truth and spirituality is always there. It's always there within you. So what we need to do is to study the world, study existence, study ourselves. Um, and the answers will always be there. I'm a living example of that. Superstition nowadays has a very what do you say, negative connotation, while to our ancestors it was just the truth, that the customs and the truth they were following. So yes, let's make that something with a positive connotation. And because the I mean if you have you ever flipped a coin? You have a choice and you flip a coin and you look at the result and you say, "Oh shoot, I wanted the other. I really wanted the other." Even though, so you say first, I will take whatever this coin shows." But as soon as you look at it and you're like, "Oh shoot, I wish it was the other." That, exactly that is the truth. That is the gut feeling. That is the truth itself. And if we always follow that sense, or that truth, we will never go wrong. We will That is our own dharma, our our inner truth and our calling. And everyone and everything has their own dharma, their own inner part of this truth. The problem is that we've stopped listening to it, and we don't we instead of doing things we are meant to do, we do things that look good
Yes.
or that we've been told to do. I'm a living example of that. All my life, I did things my parents or the expectations or society expected from me, etc. Until quite recently, the last 10 years, I started listening to myself. So again, these things I'm talking about is not no hocus pocus. It's just right there. It's just right there, and if you follow it, you won't go wrong. So yeah, superstition is the same thing that our ancestors followed, the eternal natural order.
Yes. So when we listen to our gut feeling to that, like you said, that is in tune with the universe around us, with in tune with spirit around us, isn't it?
I'm not encouraging anyone to be an idiot.
No
We should always calculate, and we should
discernment.
always be rational and intelligent. That's also part of spirituality. Spirituality is to grow as a person and to understand
Mm.
yourself and your parts in this world. So don't be an idiot, but always listen to yourself, because the answers, I promise you, the answers will be there. They won't be with some bearded man on a cloud. They will be right there within yourself. I can promise you that.
Because what I've noticed in the last 4 years, personally for me, is some doors are firmly closed in my life. And as much as I was like trying to hold the door and going, please let me back in, because that was my life, I realize now that those doors shut for a reason. And I was being guided to, and even though I don't even know where I'm being guided to, but that doesn't matter. I've just got to be present here right now and just listen to that gut feeling, and hence reaching out for you. That's correct, isn't
Yeah.
it?
And you might lose money. You might
Mm,
lose
I
your
did.
former life. You might lose your former life. I mean,
I did.
I gave up I had a very good salary, a very good life in Paris, working on a high position in the fashion industry, but it didn't really matter to me. I followed another voice finally, and it's ironic because all my life people have told me, "Well, you should be a teacher," and I've always almost like despised. I never wanted to be a teacher, and ironically, it's almost the irony of destiny that all of a sudden that's what I'm doing every day. I'm the coach and mentor of a lot of young people, and I also run this foundation with helping people finding their spirituality and themselves. So the circle is complete here. That it's complete. It's full circle with me all of a sudden I started, what do you say, encouraging of discovering and accepting my own calling. And when you do, this is also part of the Vedic and Hindu tradition, that they make a distinction between artha and dharma. So artha is your job, or your, and dharma is your true self. But if you can find what you're called and destined to do, you can also combine artha and dharma. So you can actually work and make a living off what you love and your passion. And I promise you, all your viewers and listeners, that you will be able to make a living and live a very good life if you just follow that. It will be scary. You might lose things. On the other hand, why is it so dangerous and so fearful? Is it so, yeah, is it so scary to lose all of that? Because what did it all mean in the long run if you don't follow that? So so yeah, and again, it can be very hard. You can, I mean, people have families, they have jobs, they have bills to pay, but we got to start somewhere. We got to start listening to ourselves, because we don't do that. We listen to expectations, society, media, etc. I did too, and I focused a lot on the image of myself. I had to be this well-off, high positioned boss, but for whom or why? So no, I just resigned. I just quit. So this is what people need to do. They shouldn't be idiots, but they should listen to themselves. Just start there. Listen. It's as simple as that. Spirituality is not about bearded men on clouds. It's about growing to your best and true self and your part in all of this. Because if you don't fulfill and live your true self and do your calling and your dharma, so to say, then you are not fulfilling cosmos and life and existence itself. You're not doing your part. You're not, what do you say, like the ants who draw to pull the sticks to the big pile. So you have to do your part, your share in all of this.
Thank you. I think that's a very good place to end. That's thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Thank
Thanks
you.
for having me. It was a pleasure.
What I'm going to do now is, like, my very professional manner, it's like say thank you very much to everyone listening. I think that's a very good point. I think the whole conversation has been brilliant, marvelous, and the message at the end sums up everything. Like, I'm listening to you, and it's answered so many of my questions, and that's the whole point of my podcast.
Yeah.
So
I also want to add that all those who still have questions, or have found something new here or heard something new, they are feel free to just reach out and ask questions.
yes, I'm going to put the links to your foundation in the description below. So on behalf of myself, Jenfer Taylor and Mountain Mowbray, one half of the Psychic Phoenix, I have learned so much from you tonight. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. And as I often say, the divine in me bows to the divine in you.
Thank you. So this is where I smile very light, and then stop recording.
Are we off?
Not yet. Just hang. Oh, it's all changed soon. Right. So I'm going to say goodnight again from Mountain Mowbray and stop recording.